everybody, this is Pedro with LTS and we are back with some more videos. This week's video is going to be a comparison, so hopefully I can make it very clear on what you're going to get with a specific gun over the other and why you're paying more for one over the other. So this week's video is about 694 versus DT11. So Beretta has two guns that you see on almost every gun club, which is the Beretta 694 and then the Beretta DT11. The question that I get all the time is it worth the extra money, basically double the price, to buy a Beretta DT11 instead of the 694? And the argument is they look and feel the same, they do. But I hope that this video will clarify for you which gun you should get, right? So first, let's start by saying the Beretta 694, you can get it around $5,000, where the DT11, you're going to starting point of $10,000. And those are for sporting clays guns, flat rib, no adjustable comb, okay? So on the 694, Beretta has, I would say, 4 levels of clay shooting guns. Before it used to be 3, but with the new SL2 that's out, now you got 4 levels of guns. So on your very first starting point on Beretta over-under, you're going to have your Beretta Silver Pigeon 1. Everybody knows about it, everybody heard about it, knows somebody that shoots one, have shot one. It's a very well-known brand. It's been around forever, very similar to the 680, 682, 686, 687, and so on. So that gun has been around for a long time. Then you move to Beretta 692. The 692 was the gun that actually felt like a clay gun. It was the first step, in my opinion, to an actual clay feeling gun on Beretta. The Beretta 692 has been discontinued and the 694 took its place. So now you have the 694 as the next step above the Beretta Silver Pigeon 1. After that, you have what I call now competition level guns, which will be your Beretta DT11, okay? DT11, you saw the other video, you have many variations internally, the same, but it's still many variations for you to choose from to determine which the version of the DT11 for you as a competitor is the best gun for you. And then now the new SL2, which we're gonna make a video pretty soon as I can get my hands on one. So the differences you're gonna have in consideration between entry, mid, competition gun, it's gonna be how often you're gonna need to service those guns. Yes, I repeat it again, you will need to service your gun, okay? If you don't think guns need to be serviced, please read about it, talk to somebody about it. All of these over-unders, they need to be serviced. Manufacturers will tell you. My experience has been a Beretta Silver Pigeon 1 will shoot at about 10,000 rounds and it will be time for a service. Okay, and the service will be firing pin spring, stop lever spring, locking bolt. And that is your indicator. Okay, we're gonna go over that. Then you go to the 694. The 694, you're looking at between 10 to 15,000 rounds and the gun will need to be serviced again. Then you go to your DT11. We have seen where the DT11, the bare minimum it will shoot, it's around 22,000 rounds, but I've seen people shoot up to 30,000 rounds and then service it. And then you have your your Beretta SL2. The SL2 is so new in the market that there's no way to tell how many rounds you're gonna put through that gun before you need servicing. And the indicator for this amount of shooting for servicing your gun, it's by the locking bolt. Okay, all the other parts on these guns, you can replace it 100 times. You can replace your firing pin 100 times. But the locking bolt, the part I think is the heart of a gun. That part keeps your barrel and action tight together. You have seen everybody knows, everybody's seen it, where you shoot your gun and the gun, boom, flops open. It's because the locking bolt is not keeping the barrel tied to the action anymore. Therefore, you need a bigger size locking bolt to make up for the little gap. And I'll show you how that happens. Now, this is SL2, because it's so new to the market, we haven't serviced any yet, so we don't know. Now, I can take The information that I have from the Beretta SL3 that has been out for a few years now, we have sold many 12 gauge 32 inches. The locking system is the same as the SL2 with the Boss locking bolt, and that gun is shooting at about 40,000 rounds before servicing. Okay, so when we're counting that, it's all through the locking system. So let's start on the Beretta 694 against the DT11. The main difference there for your services: one, you're looking at 10 to 15,000 rounds. One, you're looking between 20 and 30,000 rounds. And then you're gonna get somebody's gonna tell me, but Pedro, I shot my Silver Pigeon 1 for 50,000 rounds and I never serviced it. That's great for you, but as an overall, as a person that works with servicing these guns, we have seen these numbers more often than anything else. So it gives me, a salesperson who works with shooters, a good way to find out how much do you shoot a week. 100 rounds? Do you shoot every week? 200 rounds, 300 rounds, 500 rounds? If you do that, I can do a quick math on my head. If you shoot 100 rounds once a week, that's 5,200 a year. Therefore, any gun you pick, you're gonna probably starting at servicing those guns at the second year that you're shooting. But if you're shooting 300, 400, 500 rounds a week, which there's a lot of people that do, I got people who shoot 1,000 rounds a week. Well, they're shooting 500 rounds a week, that's 25,000 rounds a year. So if you get a gun that needs to be serviced every 10,000 rounds, you're gonna need to service 2.5 times a year. Okay, so in a span of 2 years, you're gonna service it 5 times. Service, it is not something that it is done very fast. So you can be without your gun up sometimes 6 to 8 weeks, depending what kind of season it is. So those are things to think about. If you're a high volume shooter, you will love to shoot, and you can't be without your gun, because getting guns from shooters to service is like pulling teeth. They never want to give it up, and I get it. So if you're a high volume shooter and your gun needs to be serviced, probably try to get a gun that you need less service, less often. Okay, so with all that being said, let's start comparing 694 DT11. So I have here two guns, a 694 12 gauge 32 inch sporting and a DT11 12 gauge 32 inch sporting. We're gonna start by the very beginning, which are the stocks. Okay, on a 694, you're getting a grade 2, 2.5 Turkish walnut. On a DT11, you're starting at a grade 3. Sometimes you're gonna squeeze out a grade 3.5. You can find a really nice one. Okay, the wood grading it's up to the grader's eye. So sometimes you have a fantastic 694 that slipped by and you get a really good lucky and you get a really pretty one. And sometimes you're gonna get a really ugly piece of wood in a DT11. So it is up to the grader's eye at the factory. So don't judge and say that the DT11s are all pretty and 694s are all ugly. No, just look for the right wood that you like. So next, dimensions. The dimensions on a 694 are different from any other Beretta clay gun. They are 1/8 of an inch higher at the nose of the comb. So on a DT11, you have two different variations in stock. The most common one you see, it's a 38 by 60, it's called, which is 1.5 by 2 3/8 inch. So you will measure it by 1.5 inches drop at the nose by 2 3/8 at the heel. And you also have 35 by 55, which would be 1 3/8 by 2 1/8. So the 694 has 1/8 of an inch higher at the nose here and the butt than the DT11. So it's very important for you that if you pick up a Silver Pigeon, if you're coming from a Silver Pigeon, you want an upgrade, and it fits you absolutely perfect, be careful, because if you buy a 694, it might be 1/8 of an inch too high for you. And vice versa. In my case, if I pick up a sporting gun and I mount it, I see nothing but the back of the top lever. So a 694 in this case will actually help me a little bit. Okay, so it is 1/8 of an inch higher. I'm sorry, 1/8 of an inch higher. Now let's go to the action. As you can see, they are very, very similar. Same nickel finish, same blue line going through the receiver. And I think that's what got people most confused, okay? My feeling over the past few years since the 694 has been out okay? And the comments that I get is, it's a baby DT11. It couldn't be the furthest thing from the truth. It is, my opinion, much closer build to a Silver Pigeon 1 than it is to a DT11. And I'll show you the main things here that I see. So let's start by looking at the action. I have here a 694 action, okay? You have your mainsprings right there that released your hammers right up front here. So it is these are coil springs, okay? Where on the DT11, I'm gonna take the trigger out for you here to see better. On a DT11, you won't be able to, right on the bottom, these are leaf springs. So it is a much crisper trigger pull, okay, and release. So on a spring, you have decompressor. On a spring-loaded hammer, you have decompression of the spring, where on the DT11, you have a leaf spring. As soon as you press, it releases. So it is a better trigger, okay? Now we go to the locking system of the gun, which for me, it's the biggest difference. As you can see, this black bar here on the receiver of a DT11, that is your locking bolt. So when you put the barrels on, that lock bolt goes in, you open, and you can see how it sticks out from the side right there, okay? On a 694, the locking bolt's right here, and it protrudes from the receiver on these two pins, which is almost identical to the Beretta Silver Pigeon 1. It is a U-shaped locking bolt, where on the 694 will fit right on the two little holes here, and on the DT11 is a cross bolt, much bigger, much more durable, that go over the teeth of the barrel right there. And I got a comment a while back that a person didn't understand how the locking bolts work. They think that the locking bolt material, the metal of the locking bolt, is softer than the metal of the barrel. No, it is reverse. Here's why. When you shoot, okay, let's start with the DT11. The locking bolt goes over the teeth as soon as you put your barrels on and locks the barrel in place. So when you shoot, there's an explosion. The barrel wants to fly off of the receiver. So then you have your hinge pins holding it right there. And then you have your recoil shoulders here on top of the barrel pushing against the locking bolt. So that's what keeps your barrel on the receiver and doesn't fly off. You open and close your gun all the time. In your shooting, there's an explosion happening. The locking bolt fitting over these teeth. Every time you open the gun and every time you shoot, it removes a little bit of material. Then your top lever, as you can see here on a brand new gun, it's all the way to the right. And as you can see, the locking bolt is sticking out of the receiver a little bit on the DT11. As you continue to shoot, those teeth are gonna get a little bit worn. Your locking bolt is gonna keep going deeper and deeper and deeper to the point where the locking bolt is completely flush. And when the locking bolt that you can see here is completely flush, your top lever at that point becomes at 6 o'clock, completely centered. That is a good indicator. Perhaps it's time to get serviced, okay? The locking bolt is as deep as it's going to be. It is holding on the barrel now, but over time, if you continue to shoot, your barrels will pop open. And then is when you start damaging the gun instead of servicing the gun. So I like to stop shooting when I see my top lever dead center at 6 o'clock. Then I will get it serviced. The gunsmith will put a oversized locking bolt. Guns have different sizes, different quantities of different size locking bolts. So on a DT11, you have 4. So you start with the standard one and then you go to the number 1 oversized locking bolt. If you pick them both next to each other, you probably can't tell the difference, but they are thousandths of an inch bigger. And once they go in over the teeth, they don't go in all the way anymore. So your top lever stays to the right all over again. And you have a fresh new locking bolt where that little material that was removed from the top of the teeth of the barrel are now filled in the gap and you can continue to shoot all over again. Okay. Now on the 694, where you have those two little pin holes right there next to the barrel, those holes work kind of the same. Here's a 694 brand new, okay? top lever to the right, and when you push your top lever, you will see that pushes the locking bolt back. So that locking bolt will fit into those two little holes right there. As you shoot, as you open and close with the wear, the locking bolts will continue to make its way deeper into the little holes till it's completely flat. Your top lever is all the way to the center, and if you continue to shoot, the same thing will happen. Your barrels will pop open. Now, in my opinion, where the locking bolt fits into the little hole here on 694, 680 series, you got to be even more careful, because on the teeth of the DT11, you have 4 more sizes of locking bolts that you can put, and this gun, the locking bolt on these guns and the metal on the metal on the barrel lasts much longer, since the 694 and the 680 series guns don't last as long per locking bolt as a DT11 does. If you continue to shoot your gun, you're gonna notice that the holes, instead of being perfectly round, are gonna become oval shaped towards the bottom. And that's when you can run into trouble if you're overdue for a service, because then we're gonna put the next size up locking bolt, but there's so much movement when the locking system goes that removes so much material that the next size up might not be enough to bring it back to the center and lock all the way. We see that a lot. So we've seen where the locking bolt between the two guns are different. The DT11 has, yes, a better, more durable locking system. Now we go to the action. On the action, it's pretty similar. You have your hinge pins on both, your cocking rods in the same position right on the bottom, your hinge pins internally right there. Now, right over top, you can see the difference on the locking system. 694 on my right hand, DT11 here on my left hand, and you can tell where the locking bolt goes. So yes, it's bigger, it's more durable. Now, how to extend the life of your locking bolt? I talked about this before. Close your gun softly. Don't smash it closed. I don't want to hear about, well, back in my older gun, I just smash it closed and lasts forever. Great. We're talking about these guns here. Please, close it softly, okay? You will cause the locking bolt to go enough to keep the barrels locked. But if you close it too hard, it goes in deeper than it needs to, by therefore removing material more faster than it needs to. So, your wood is different grade. The dimensions are a little bit different. Your trigger mechanism is different. Your trigger release is a little bit different. Your locking bolt system is different. Then we go to the forend. Now, does it matter because the forends are different? No, but I'm going to show you anyway. So, the forend on a DT11 is a pretty common one single piece. As you can see here, it's been around for a long time, very similar to the 686, 682. One single piece forend with the latch right on the front. Now you go to the 694, a new design, 2-piece forend, okay, with a button right here. It is very important, as you can see, both are held by tiny little screws, okay? The forends are not made for you to shoot and pull down on it when you're opening a gun. That is how you get your forend to become loose, and that's how it's very likely they will crack. They will crack all the way through the bottom. So when I'm opening my gun, I hold it and I grab it from the top of the rib and just pull it down. Don't use your forend to pull it down, because the wood, it is only held together by the two little screws right there. Those screws will come loose, and every gun will have their forend loose at some point from any manufacturer. It is good practice that when you come home and you clean your gun, if you clean it every time or once a month, whatever it is, make sure your forend screws on whatever model gun you have are all nice and snug. So your forends are different. Barrels. We talked about the locking system between them both, okay? We're going to talk about the forcing cones. The forcing cones on Beretta, it's a big deal. Every gun they offer has longer forcing cones, the more expensive and better they get. So On the DT11, yes, it does have longer forcing cones, and if I'm not mistaken, 450 millimeter total forcing cone on this gun now. So on the Beretta line, their forcing cones are something that you hear all the time. Helps reduce of the recoil. I have shot both of these guns. I don't feel a difference in recoil between a DT11 and a 694. Recoil also not something that bothers me, so I could be wrong, therefore shoot them both. But I've shot it many times, more than enough to be able to tell which gun is what when you're just handling the guns, but recoil wise, they are very similar. Now, the barrels on both guns still use the same choke system. Okay, they have both used the Optima HP chokes, and they're both chromium lined. So as far as the barrel goes, even though the DT11 has the longer forcing cones, to me doesn't make much difference. It is more so the locking system that is on this current gun. There are of course many other differences in the safety. The DT11 has a detachable trigger where the 694 does not, but those are little differences that to me make zero difference. The big ones for me are trigger mechanism, locking bolt, stock dimensions is very important. Locking bolt, and also the fact that the DT11 comes in a variety of different models for you. So on the 694, if you're a skeet shooter, you don't have a skeet gun. Okay, if you're a true trap shooter and you like those 1-inch high ribs, you don't have that gun. You have every variation imaginable for every sport on the DT11. On the 694, you only have the sporting version and the ACS version. Now you can shoot everything with those two models, but I'm here anyway telling you this. I hope I have clarified the differences between a 694 and a DT11. It is not a baby DT11. It is its own gun. So if you're a high volume shooter and you're do the math in your head, and now you know you're shooting about 10 to 15,000 rounds on a 694, 20 to 30,000 rounds on a DT11. So do the math and see which gun will work for you. Because even though one is half of the price, I don't want to say you're gonna get half of the things, but sort of. You're not getting a fantastic trigger, but you're not getting a DT11 trigger. You're not getting a DT11 locking system. You're not getting a DT11 balance. All right. I hope I have clarified a lot of these questions. Choose the right gun for you. It doesn't matter what I say. Go out and shoot them. I'm just here comparing them for you, so you kind of have a little more information. If you guys like the channel, please subscribe, put your likes down, leave me any comment you want. I try to look at them as often as I can. The merchandise page is doing great. The hats are back in stock again. The link will be below if you're interested. Thank everybody for watching. Take care.